Legendary street baller, the Professor, is unfortunately dealing with another injury. In this video, we're going to break down the footage of what happened and explain whether or not there is in fact concern that what occurred here could be career threatening. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal in this channel is to teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. Now, one of the recent comments I got on a YouTube video was to take a look at what just happened with the Professor. And I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of this, so thank you for that recommendation. Of course, pretty famously, he had an Achilles injury a number of years ago, but he's uploaded in the last handful of days here these videos talking about this new lower leg injury, and the title of this most recent was that he has a career-threatening injury. I will say right off the bat, there's nothing about this that he should be worried is career threatening based on what he's shown us and based on what he's talking about. Significant injury, yes, but this is not anything that I would tell an athlete would be career threatening, even at his a little bit older age and where he's at in his career. So let's first look at just exactly what happened here. So as he's playing, we can see him go out. He tries to aggressively stop on that left foot, but as this continues, look at what happens with his right ankle. His right ankle and foot get forced underneath him, and that foot goes into an externally rotated position. So right here, of course, his tibia pointed forward, that foot is externally rotated, and that external rotation is the same mechanism and position of what happens whenever you suffer a high ankle sprain. He shared his actual x-rays with us, but this mechanism, this position, is going to stress the high ankle ligament, the syndesmosis that connects between the tibia and the fibula, and is what you see on the football field, etc., with a high ankle sprain. Obviously, there's different severities of high ankle sprain and other injuries, which is where his is a little bit different. But mechanism, high ankle sprain with that forced external rotation of the foot with a locked ankle mortise between the tibio-talar and that joint of the ankle. He shares these x-rays in the video, and what we're looking at here is an AP view of the knee. This is going to be the tibia, the shin bone, and then on the outside here we have the fibula. And there you can see this fracture of the proximal, meaning the upper part of the fibula. This is called a Mason-New fracture. And a Mason-New fracture is a fracture of that proximal upper portion of the fibula that occurs in the mechanism of a high ankle sprain. Now, to understand all that, we've got to go look at our anatomy here for a minute. So looking at our biodigital anatomy tool here, I've basically shown the tibia and the fibula. So tibia here, the shin bone, and the fibula on the outside. If we go all the way down to the bottom of the ankle joint, this ligament right here is going to be the AITFL. This is the classic high ankle sprain ligament at that lower syndesmosis. This is going to maintain the stability between the fibula and the tibia down at the ankle. There's also this syndesmosis, this membrane that runs the entire length of the lower leg pretty much, connecting, again, that tibia to the fibula. What happens with that high ankle sprain mechanism is the energy gets transferred up into this AITFL. Typically, it's going to cause the AITFL to tear. It can cause a fracture and a whole host of other injuries. But with a Mason-New fracture, what occurs is the energy goes from down here, travels up the syndesmosis, up through the leg, and then exits out at the proximal shaft of the fibula, causing that proximal fibula fracture. So it's an energy, it's a mechanism that injures the ankle, but instead of the structures down in the ankle sort of taking the brunt of the load, the brunt of the impact, it gets transferred up. Sorry, I'm having a hard time steering here. It gets transferred up the length of the leg, travels through that syndesmotic membrane, and exits, causing a fracture up at the top portion of the fibula. That's why we see him in a boot. That's why we hear him talk about this fibula fracture. So what's next for him here? Of course, the title of his video is Career-Threatening Injury. He's obviously very downtrodden in the video, understandably after having another significant injury. But this is not one that I would consider career-threatening. You're going to be immobilized. These fibula fractures pretty much never require surgery. It's just some immobilization in a boot, some protected weight bearing, and within 6 to 8 weeks, that fibula fracture should be healed with really no residual issues. There is a nerve that travels around that part of the fibula, and so sometimes some swelling, if there's a lot of severe displacement, might irritate that nerve. But assuming there's no nerve injury, everything should heal up just fine from this fracture with no residual complications. Now, you can also have disruption, some tearing of that syndesmosis down lower in the ankle, which might require something like a tightrope surgery to fix. But a tightrope surgery is a very quick recovery. You know, a football player can be back on the field in just a couple of weeks even, so not career threatening either. Unless there's something else that we haven't seen in terms of a severe ankle fracture or other injuries beyond just what he's shown us, at face value, reassuringly, I would not consider these career threatening. I know in the moment it feels like you're not going to get back, it's frustrating, but nothing about what he shared with us, that mechanism, would be something I would tell an athlete could be career threatening, which hopefully is reassuring news if by any chance he sees this video. But a really interesting injury. I don't think we've ever talked about these Mason-New fractures where you get these proximal fibula fractures up here as a result of a high ankle sprain mechanism. But this is why medical students, trainees out there, anytime you're seeing somebody for an ankle injury, always go up and palpate, push around on the head of their fibula, make sure they don't have a lot of pain at their knee. Because I've seen a couple of these, they're easy to miss, there's pain at the ankle, and then you go push and their knee's really sore and you get an x-ray and you see this fracture. Or vice versa, if you see this fracture on a knee x-ray, think about what's going on down at the ankle. Nonetheless, that's it for today's video, everybody. Thank you as always for watching. It would be cool if he sees this. Hopefully it's some reassurance that this shouldn't be career threatening based on what he shared with us. If we see any other updates, I'll be sure to share those along the way, but hopefully you learned something from this one. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.